In this final part of my Petite Curie project, I'll be finishing up my X-ray truck conversion, taking a 1/35th scale taxi kit and recreating the vehicle in my archive photo, using 3D printed parts that I've designed myself. And in this film I'll be completing the build, adding the final resin printed parts, equipment boxes and homemade decals, as well as a figure of Marie Curie herself, also converted from an ICM kit, for my celebration of a great scientist and a fascinating historical vehicle. We left part 2 with the bodywork virtually complete, but a couple of details outstanding, the horn on the side and the headlights, which I'm going to deal with first. Like everything else, these are designed in Tinkercad, a bit of free software that I've been teaching myself how to use. And for my headlights I'm trying out something new, the revolve tool, which is perfect for my bell shape. Like the other parts of the series, this isn't intended to be a tutorial, or a hint at what can be achieved with the software, even by a relative novice like myself, although it does help being a 2D graphic designer by trade and familiar with Bezier curves. My other parts are rather more straightforward, a couple of blocks for the stem and half a circular ring for the cradle, the colours being largely for show, the disc at the front having no purpose, other than giving us a feel for what the painted item's going to look like. But rather than printing in grey, I'm going to use a transparent resin, so the front of my lamp will remain unpainted, giving us a clear lens. And here's the printed item, washed but not yet cured, as I want to get rid of that support structure, while everything is still a bit soft, although that also means that we're going to have to handle everything with care. Unlike with a filament print, where supports literally hold up what's above, those for resin actually support downwards, holding elements to the print bed, everything being the wrong way up. They also don't break away quite as easily, a pair of angle cutters, helping to get a nice clean edge, finished off with a sharp scalpel blade. But even then we may want to wait until after curing for the final cleanup. Along with my printer I bought a wash cure station, and while you can get away without one, it does make life much easier. Also giving a more even cure, the turntable slowly rotating our print as it's exposed to the UV lights, setting our resin hard. And whilst not crystal clear, transparent enough for our headlight lenses. And with the second one printed, we can give them both a little file to tidy up before testing the position on the front of the truck, holding them in place with a tiny blob of blue tack, checking they stick out at the right angle, once again using our photo for reference, although we are going to have to use our judgment for the distance apart, as that's not entirely clear from the angle we've got. My final part is the horn, a classic honker to let everyone know our truck is coming through, and undoubtedly the most complex bit of CAD I've tried so far. Once again I've used the revolve tool to design the bulb, setting my anchor points on the curve and using the handles to adjust the angles, my segment rotating around the axis to form a solid. The brassy bit is a combination of all sorts of shapes. The main part of the trumpet once again uses the revolve tool, getting that flared skirt, which can be isolated and edited at any time, clicking the finished sketch when we're done. Then I've got a bunch of tubes, some just straightforward cylinders, others segments of toruses, donut shapes cut in half or even quarters, and tapering bits, getting wider as they go round, not always joining perfectly, but no one's going to notice when it's printed really small. Like all my parts for the conversion, the STLs are available to download from my website, direct link in the description, so if you've got a vintage truck that needs a horn, you know where to find one, and you can print it the size you want. Back with the headlights, it's time for some painting, starting with the reflectors, an underpainting of silver, which hopefully will give a bit of sparkle. For this I'm pressing the headlights lens down onto some double-sided tape stuck to my painting mat, where I'm going to airbrush them with Humbrol metallic aluminium, a solvent-based paint, but an acrylic will do just as well, getting a nice even coat, although it's actually the inside we're interested in, as when they're dry we're going to overpaint with brass. So it's back onto a new piece of double-sided tape, once again lens down, so that stays transparent. We can also paint my horn, or rather horns as I printed two, at slightly different sizes, so I can pick the one that fits best. I've also got a backup in case I break one. They really are very small, and I'm actually quite surprised they printed so well. Now for some brass, and again I'm using some enamel, spraying the backs of the lights over the silver and the main parts of the horns, finishing up with an overall coat. I'll overpaint the black bulbs later, when the brass paint is dry. Then, when it is, we can also fit the headlights, applying a tiny blob of superglue onto the end of the stem, which I've since painted to match the bodywork, in sky green. Obviously my reference photo is black and white, so I'm having to use my judgment for some of the colour scheme, also referencing what I hope are some reliable replicas of real vehicles made for TV and film. But even if not 100% accurate, the brass and grey-green looks great. I'll put details of all the paints I've used in the description. Then it's on with headlight number 2, the base sticking on top of the spring and straightening it up, so the angle is exactly the same as the other one, and they're evenly spaced on the front of the truck. I'll be coming back to fitting the horn later, but first the decals, which again I've designed myself, this time using Adobe InDesign. The tricky thing is that unlike professional waterslide transfers, I can't print white, so I'm having to print the background, matching my sky green as close as possible, trying out 2 alternatives in various tints, as I'll only really know which is right when I get them on the model. I did a similar thing for my network rail inspection train, which you can see on the link above, and I've done a few more videos on the subject, so check out my channel page if you want to know more. On my sheet I've also got some French flags and red crosses, again the decal paper providing the whites, and the vehicle number in a stencil font with a bit of that sky green around, which like the main circular decals will need to be trimmed before application. As my printer inks are water-based, I've also given my sheet a coat of varnish, and when that's thoroughly dry we can set about trimming the first of the decals, equipped with a brand new blade. I'm going to start with the lightest ones of my second colour option, first cutting out with a pair of scissors. Obviously the white of my decal paper goes beyond the edge of the design, so I'm going to have to cut that out. And the trick here is not to cut all the way through the backing sheet, just through the transfer layer. This makes controlling the scalpel much easier, even in a circle, and slowly rotating the piece of paper. It doesn't take too long to carefully cut round the edge. When we've got right round, I'm just cutting a little nick from the circle to the edge of the paper, at the top and the bottom of the design. This will make it easier to remove the residue floating off either side, leaving just the circle on the backing paper, ready for application. Then with a final check that our circle's complete, we can pull up a saucer of water. But before dropping in our decal, I just want to remove the roof and windscreen that up till now have only been dry fitted, so I can still get to the cab interior. Like the decal sheet, I've also lightly sprayed the bodywork with gloss varnish, which I'm ensuring is free from dust, so we get a nice smooth adhesion. My background colour doesn't look far off, but we'll only really be able to tell when it's off the backing sheet and in place, so it's into the water for my transfer, giving it a minute or 2 to loosen from the backing sheet. When it's ready we can drag away the waste, the unwanted white background, around the edge of the design, first from one side and then from the other, having turned the decal, just leaving the circular area on its own on the backing sheet, which we can take over to the model and slide into position inside the circular area, using a soft brush to manoeuvre into place inside the raised rim, a final gentle nudge with a fingertip, smoothing in the edges with the brush. And I'm actually pretty pleased with that for a first attempt, a much closer match to the paintwork than I expected, but still perhaps a bit light. So for the other side I'm going to try out the one a shade darker, which I've prepared and trimmed in exactly the same way, discarding the waste before lining up on the model and gently sliding into place, carefully dabbing with a cotton bud, pressing the edges flat. And while the difference is only marginal, I think I am happier with that, as a very slightly closer match. So back with side 1, I'm going to remove that one and replace with the slightly darker version. Like the 3D print files, you can find the PDF for the finished decal sheet using that colour on the website, direct link in the description. Then with my 2 roundels in place, I'm going to leave them to dry before going on to the next bits, including the French flags, for which I've cut through the surface before immersing in water, so the excess background can be pulled away in exactly the same way as the roundels, leaving just the tricolor behind, the remaining background forming the white stripe. Then it's onto the model, coaxing it off the backing sheet with our soft brush, taking care not to chip the ink layer around the edge, which even with the varnish is still vulnerable, and when we're happy with the position, we can go on to the next one. Our red cross flag, the background once again having been trimmed off, the straight edges being much easier to cut than the round ones. And one small advantage of making your own is you don't get that silvery bit around the edge. Next we've got the vehicle number, and being white we once again need the background colour, just a bit around the edge, and I've made sure that my trim is inside the rectangle so I don't get a white line around the outside, although inevitably, even though the decal layer is really thin, you do get a bit of the side showing. But really that's no worse than the glossy backing of a commercial decal. Again, we need to be very careful when brushing into place, and I tend to avoid any softeners, as I found that they can affect the print, or don't penetrate the varnish layer, making them next to useless. Then, with minimal dabbing with the cotton bud, we can leave our decals to air dry. Without a photo, the back of my truck is all very speculative, and it's the same for the decals, but I'm guessing that they'd need to be the same as the sides, a French flag and a red cross, as high as possible in order to be recognised, so that's what I've gone for. Then we've got the red cross in the circle for the front, which we can see in the photo, and that needs trimming in the same way. The unwanted background slid away, leaving just the circular decal to be stuck on the front of the roof, the disc for which I've painted white, giving us a nice tidy edge around the trim design, which again can be gently patted into place. And that's the decals done. All that's needed now is a thin coat of varnish. Then when that's dry, we can fit the horn. Once again, checking with our reference photo. A small dab of epoxy on the door and on the back of the horn itself, having opted for the smaller of the two. Lining up with some tweezers and gently guiding into place, with the bulb above the top of the door, where it can be honked by the driver. Also in my photo we can see a tarpaulin over the top, where I'm assuming some equipment is stored, and that's what we come to next, using some of the wooden boxes from this MiniArt kit. Just the smaller ones, which are exactly the kind of thing that might be used for the X-ray equipment. These also could be 3D printed, but what's the point in that, with this kit and others like it readily available, and of a better quality. I may be an enthusiastic advocate of 3D printing, but only when you can't get things elsewhere. The build of the boxes is dead straightforward. The only thing to watch out for is the position of the hinges, making sure the top matches the sides, and getting the handles at the end the right way up on each of the box styles. The fold-down metal sort for the little ones, and the wooden bars for the others. And even though we get 2 of each, I'm just making one of the longer ones. I'm pretty sure that's all that's going to fit. The other thing I want to put on top is the spare tyre, the one from the side of the taxi, adapting the inner rim accordingly, cutting off the mount and the bolts, which would normally attach it to the side of the car, but leaving the valve in place and just tidying up all round. We can give both the tyre and the rim a paint later on, just like for the main wheels. I've decided to go for a plain wood effect on all of the boxes, applying an initial coat of creamy grey enamel. Over this I want to spray some more grey in very thin coats, varying the colour from plank to plank, masking off half of each face and a random assortment of the sides, then sticking them down on my painting mat with a blob of blue tack. I can give them a light spray. I did a similar sort of thing for the wooden decking on a previous truck kit, so if you want to see the process in a little more detail, check out the link above. The effect I'm going for is pretty subtle, but enough to give a slight variation, so my boxes aren't too uniform. When the enamel is dry, I can apply some water-based washes to bring out the grain of the wood, brushing in some acrylic thinners, and then applying the wash, which will naturally seep into the grain, and pool around raised features like the hinges and latches, accentuating the detail of the moulding. This is also an opportunity to add more variety by using more or less of the wash, allowing it to build up in places and thinning it out in others. We can also use different colours to pick out some details and blend in others. The overall effect we're after is a natural look, with subtle differences along the length of each plank, as well as from plank to plank, and a bit of wear and tear from the boxes being loaded and unloaded off the truck. Then to finish up, I just need to glue on the handles for the long box, which I left off to get the paint underneath, sticking them on with some tiny dots of superglue and adjusting until straight. Then we've got the various hinges and latches, which I'm going to paint black, using a fine brush, not forgetting the sides, trying to get the corners as crisp as possible, and not going over the edges. The build now largely complete, I want to apply a little bit of weathering, spraying a very light coat of engine grime. This will help soften the contrast on the equipment boxes, and add a little texture to our spare tyre. I'm also going to spray the underside of the truck, but first I want to pick out some of the details with my washes, allowing the contrasting tint to flow into the mouldings of the suspension springs and other parts of the chassis, shading where grime would have built up, even on a relatively new vehicle, which is the condition I've decided upon. Not quite fresh out of the factory, but still pretty new. Then a light overall coat of grime, thinning my weathering paint a little more than usual, so it can be built up gradually, quite a bit more on the underside of the chassis, protecting the rest of the truck with a simple sheet of paper. A little overspray is not going to be a problem. The mid-tone of the paint has a flattening effect, darkening the light bits whilst lightening the darker areas, those under the engine and the gearbox, as well as reducing any sheen from the metallic and semi-gloss paint. And we want a similar effect on the lower sides, so shielding the upper body, we can spray the running boards and wheels just a little bit for a fine coating of roadside muck, feathering into the lower body. making sure we also get into some of those hidden corners, behind the dynamo and the equipment boxes on the running boards, as well as the underside of the upper body. Our thin paint sprayed at a distance, ensuring a soft transition, with the top part of the body barely touched. The acrylic weathering doesn't take long to dry, and when it has, we can embark on the final assembly, removing the masking tape from the windows, which was there to prevent any of the varnish from dulling their transparency. This is also the reason I haven't fitted the windscreen yet, but it's time to stick it in place, adding a little bit of superglue where it fits behind the radiator and at either end, before carefully lowering into place, lining up the sides, making sure the bottom of the frame sits neatly on top of the door panels, before guiding forward and pressing into place behind the radiator, which, along with the bonnet and the front mudguards, are the most visible parts of the original kit. Then it's on with the roof, the cab ceiling fitting between the bulkhead and the top of the windscreen, where I've applied a couple of drops of glue to hold it perfectly upright. Then it's time to load up the equipment, the boxes having been numbered with decals from the MiniArt kit. I chose not to smother everything with red crosses, and a lot of the other signs were just too modern. I also decided not to bother with the tarpaulin, which would have just covered up my hard work. Otherwise, I think my finished truck is pretty true to my source photo. But the whole thing wouldn't be complete without a figure of Marie Curie herself, ready to drive the truck into action. The basis of my figure is a member of the ambulance crew set, another kit from ICM, but rather than the stiff nurse's headgear, I want to build up the distinctive Marie Curie hairdo, blobbing on some AK filler, although you could also use milliput or something like that. This I'm sculpting with a scalpel tip, building up a bit of the height, quite roughly folding in the layers of filler, which is still really quite fluid, so we can get quite a nice loose feel, flicking in a bit of texture. I've also carved away some of the original hair down the sides, so we can smooth in the back of the neck, gradually building up the shape. Once the initial sculpting is dry, I just want to smooth in the transition with the forehead, and add a bit more filler at the top for that extra width. Again, using the tip of the scalpel to flick in a bit of texture for that slightly ruffled look, and further defining the hairline around the temples and over the ears. This will be even clearer when painted. And that's what we come to now, gradually building up layers of white for the clothes, allowing some of the grey underpainting to show through, helping to accentuate the folds of the fabric, the collar and cuffs getting an extra bit of attention. The paint also starts to reveal some of the nice bits of the moulding, the pleats around the waistline, and the ties of the apron at the front, where I can pick out the highlights of the folds, feathering into the wet paint on either side. When that's dry, I'm going to add some washes, just like I did on the boxes, to bring out some of the fine creases, brushing in a pale grey and blending with a water-based thinner, brushing it off of the raised areas and leaving just a bit down in the bottom of the folds, providing some extra contrast. How much you add to the sculpting with paint effects is entirely a matter of taste. Personally, I like to keep it fairly soft, allowing the moulding itself to do the heavy lifting, particularly on something that's quite a light fabric, just picking up the details on things like the collar and the deeper creases on the sleeves. Likewise, I prefer not to overdo the painting of the facial features, just gently blending the skin tones, and perhaps a highlight on cheekbones and nose. The same for the hair, with a soft edge where it meets the face, and not forgetting the eyebrows, and a tiny bit of pink to the lips for that natural look, appropriate to the battlefield. Then with finishing touches to the soles of the brown leather boots, and some loose ringlets for the hair, my figure is just about done. Not necessarily a faithful portrait of the great woman, but hopefully enough of a likeness to celebrate her contribution to science, in particular the life-saving X-ray trucks of World War I, the Petite Curies.